everyone. Welcome to Coast, Customer Success in Practice. I'm Catalina, and with me is my co-host, Tamara. We're going to focus on navigating difficult conversations in customer success. So we wanted to spend some time talking to someone who's had a lot of experience navigating difficult conversations with customers.
Yeah, we're so excited to have Santi on the pod with us today. I've worked with Santi for the last almost 4 years. And when I think of someone who's really good at navigating difficult conversations and who's good at just kind of the weaving of relationships, I think of Santi. And so Kat and I were really excited to bring him on today. He's had experience both on the sales side and on the customer success side. Just to kick us off, Santi, one of the most challenging conversations you've ever had with a customer?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the warm intro and super psyched to be here, honestly. I mean, Tam, you've mentored me, Kat, you hired me, gave me my entry to the ed tech space. So this is special, so I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I mean, I think you already kind of mentioned I've been a PSM, I've been also a trainer. Now I'm like the sales side of the house, and I am just overall just very passionate about relationships in general, especially right when it comes to the business here, our customer relationships that are so important. Most challenging conversation with a customer, and I recently transitioned to the sales team, but one of my last interactions as a CSM was probably one of the most difficult interactions that I've had. In a support ticket, the customer threatened to ask for a refund due to their dissatisfaction, right, with our services, our support, and just their overall experience. In my 3 years as a CSM, that had never happened. So I quickly looped in my sales counterpart and both of our managers. And the first kind of difficult conversation wasn't with the customer. It was actually internal. It was between success and revenue. Even though success and revenue, right, are united by mission, they can often be divided by approach. And I'm sure y'all have seen that and probably experienced that. So my sales counterpart, right, wanted to move mountains to appease the customer in the short term. And that's understandable, even if it means making promises that we can't keep or creating a service approach that we might not be able to sustain. But confident in my relationship management skills, I asked that before we start making promises from this place of fear or desperation, that we meet with the customer, right, to just get a better sense, a better understanding of their frustrations, because all we had was a support ticket that said, I'm not happy, I'm going to ask for a refund, right? So there wasn't a ton that we could go off. So we came up with a plan, right? I obviously had a little bit of context about this customer. I knew that it came down to communication style. They were not good with email, managing their email throughout our implementation. They just had a hard time keeping up with their inbox and the communication. And that was confirmed on the call, right? So we came up with a plan to meet bi-weekly for 30 minutes for 6 weeks to just help the customer get the hang of the product and also build some better systems that can support their communication. And we didn't even need the 6 weeks to get them to a good spot, right? We met for 2 or 3 times, figured everything out. And the next time my sales counterpart saw them at a conference, which was fairly recently, the customer couldn't stop raving about our product and about our organization. Very positive, excellent. There's a new challenge with that account, but that's kind of outside the scope of the conversation today. But yeah, I'm really happy how we kind of handled that because the stakes were so high.
Thanks for sharing that. And also kudos, the turnaround, amazing. What we'd like to start off with in our conversation is about common tough conversations, why they matter. I feel like your example, your story illustrates many common difficult conversation topics, which is escalations, managing expectations. I want to go straight to why do these moments define a customer relationship?
Last episode, right, y'all were talking about relationships save accounts. And if relationships save accounts, difficult conversations grow them and strengthen them, right? So difficult conversations are not something to shy away from or avoid, right? But something to kind of just approach with curiosity and empathy. And I think they're key in the development and the health of any relationship. It doesn't have to be customer relationships. It also can be with your partner or your kids or yourself, right? Difficult conversations directly impact customer trust. So if as a CSM, right, you're approaching the difficult conversation in an open, honest, empathetic way, you are building trust, right? While if you're avoiding or shying away from the conversation or even become a little bit defensive, you're chipping away at that trust, right? And I think that happens out of natural response to discomfort, right? Difficult conversations are uncomfortable and people tend to respond to discomfort differently, right? You either run away from it, it paralyzes you, or you lean into it. So why do we want to lean into it, right? With openness and honesty, it builds customer loyalty, right? So customer trust leads to customer loyalty. Tam, I think you mentioned this in the last episode. Customers remember how you made them feel, right? Especially during challenging times. We tend to have this like negativity bias, right? We tend to remember the negative times. Therefore, we're going to remember how we felt when times were tough and how my CSM made me feel when times were tough. And a well-handled, difficult conversation will strengthen loyalty, even if the outcome isn't ideal. We don't have to have the answers all the time. As long as we approach that conversation empathetically, openly, it will strengthen the loyalty of our customers. A couple more things here. Reputation. Word of mouth spreads quickly. And I think our organization, right, is known for the service that we provide, right? And so if you're able to navigate this difficult conversations in an empathetic way, in a kind way, and make customers feel good, the reputation of the organization will increase. And your
brand.
Absolutely. I mean, we are kind of like the face of we're walking logos in a way for the brand. And then there's the opportunity for growth as well. So you have loyalty, reputation, and an opportunity for growth. The incredible opportunities to learn, right? Learn more about your own skills and your own gaps in your communication, your relationship management, but you also have an incredible opportunity to better learn about your customers' needs, right? And how you can bring that feedback to your organization and maybe improve some processes, improve the product, or improve your own approach.
Yeah, that's super insightful. I love how you laid it out too. Now, would love to take a moment to talk about what are some mistakes or common mistakes you find that CSMs make when handling tough conversations?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that a CSM can make when handling tough conversations is waiting for the tough conversation to happen, right? And what I mean is just taking your initial meeting with your customer, whether it's the kickoff or whether it's the kind of transition into you, just establishing trust and making yourself a trusted partner from the get-go. How does the saying go? You don't get first impressions. You don't get a second chance at first impressions or something like that. I think that first impression really, really matters. And so every time that you have an opportunity to connect with a customer, it's how can I build a little bit more trust? How can I build a little bit more intimacy? Now, from a more kind of reactive sense, right? Difficult conversation happens, lack of preparation, right? You want to be prepared when you're going into a difficult conversation. You want to have a clear objective. You want to maybe do some digging and kind of gather some context. It's communication, tickets, data, what's going on with the account. Getting defensive or shutting down is also another mistake, right? I think when you're being faced with criticism or anger, it can be difficult to stay calm, right? And it can be difficult to not take it personal, but it's not personal, right? It's just business. Lack of empathy too, which is understandably CSMs deal with so much throughout their day, and you can be tired, and that exhaustion can lead you to kind of maybe tune out, check out. You're another conversation here, but just remembering that you have it's not a customer, it's a real person with real problems and real feelings on the other side of the screen, the phone, the table. Avoiding the conversation can be really, 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 really bad. So if you're delaying the conversation, avoiding it, it's just going to make the situation worse. Not listening to your customer. Sometimes in your preparation, you might have a script and you're okay, I talked to my manager about this. This is what I'm going to say, blah, blah, blah. but that kind of makes you tune out to what your customer really wants and is really saying. And that can make things a lot worse, right? Because now they're not
Yeah.
feeling heard, they're not feeling safe. And the biggest mistake I've made, I would say, is not documenting the conversation, mostly to like share it with the team and create a broader learning opportunity, right? Because I might be having these difficult conversations, I'm learning from them, but because I'm not documenting them or sharing them with the broader team, we're all missing out.
Those are really great things for people to watch out for as missteps. Also applies to marriage, I just want to say. Like applicable skills here, Santi, all around.
Yeah.
One of the things I heard you say in your example that you told at the beginning was that your revenue counterpart was responding maybe out of fear or was maybe responding out of upset, right? And so you named that you acknowledged those emotions and went into the first difficult conversation kind of acknowledging, this is how the other person may be feeling. They're reacting out of these emotions. When you think about preparing for tough conversations, either with a customer or even with an internal counterpart, what is your approach? Like, how do you kind of navigate stepping into that? And just kind of like talking us through any advice that you have for people preparing for difficult conversations.
I think I can use that initial example to kind of go through this, right? So
Yep.
like understanding context, right, is really important. So the customer had a very particular communication style. And so just knowing that, right, knowing your customer's motivations, right, knowing like previous experiences, again, history of the issue, what are their pain points, right? Review past interactions, support tickets, any other relevant documentation. Try to gather as much information about your customer as you possibly can. With that is defining your objective, right? Like the objective of the conversation was to just understand a little bit better. We're not going to like problem solve. We're not going to move mountains. We're not going to offer discounts, anything crazy. Like we're just going to like understand. So get really clear on what it is that you hope to achieve from the conversation, right? Is it resolution? Is it understanding? Are you setting expectations? Is it something else? That's going to help you stay focused and it's going to give you some much needed peace in those kind of tough times. Also helpful is to like anticipate your customers, reactions and perspectives or objections, right? So first put yourself in their shoes, right? Like that's the empathy part. And think about from their perspective, right? What are their concerns, right? So it might be that their reputation is also at stake, right? It has nothing to do with you or the product. It's like, hey, I have eyes on you right now. And that's a place where you can empathize and connect with your customer. What could their potential reactions be? And so again, this type of preparation, right, allows you to have more empathetic responses. Couple more things here. I would say practice. I think like role play, and maybe this is the teacher in me, love role play.
Love it.
I feel like we need to do more of that. And in my experience in the CS space, not enough role play going on. So just rehearsing those conversations will kind of help you identify any potential blind spots, or maybe you're getting too reactive, or you're not acknowledging your customer's feelings or validating them. And also just mindset. I think like again from my teaching background, right? You control the weather. It's the same thing. Like it's the same thing. And when you're in a customer call, right? It's like approach it with a calm, positive, solution-oriented mindset, and just remember that the goal is a positive outcome for both parties, right? And that your job is to help the customer feel successful, right? It might not be to find all the solutions and all the answers, but just to help them feel successful.
That was awesome, Santi. So I feel like you've hit on so many great nuggets for CSMs to think about when approaching tough conversations. One of the big takeaway is just like leaning in, because these really define how you build this relationship. Leaning into having that tough conversation, don't delay it. Thanks for listening, because you definitely referenced so many of the points we talked about in our last episode.
Yeah, of course.
So with that being said, we really appreciate your time. We're going to wrap up here soon, but I want to pass it to Tam to kind of close this out.
That was great, Santi. It's cool having guests on the podcast. It makes me feel like, man, we got to bring Santi back. There's more to talk about, right? Like there's so much learning to be had, which is exciting. And I just learned a few things too. And I've been working with Santi for years. So this has been awesome, Santi. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to connect with you, where's a good space to do that?
If anybody's interested in just creative personal development, living a more intentional life, I do have a website that you can go check out. I post my
We'll
ideas
link
there
it.
weekly. Yeah, link it, santiv.xyz. That's santiv.xyz. And if you're an email addict like I am, there's also a newsletter there for you to kind of check out. But yeah, not a huge social media guy. I probably should be more involved in LinkedIn. So maybe next episode, maybe I'll plug
We'll get there.
the LinkedIn.
We'll
yeah,
get there.
absolutely.
But we will link
But
Santi's information if you want to connect with him. He's a great thought leader in this space. So thanks for being here, Santi, and we'll catch you all on the next Coast to Coast.
thanks for having me, y'all.